Okay, thank you. Double-click and programmatic is fashionable. Everyone is asking us, are we taking the best advantage of the opportunities that we have in the market? And in many cases, this has been a process because it's not easy to do so. This is not just another media, by the way. It's not that we just say double-click and double-click CPM or double-click CPC or CPA or whatever else. It's not like that. Most probably, this will be the future of advertising. And we are not only talking about changing the flows of work, which is very good for us and very relevant as well, but at the same time, it's offering efficiency and relevance. But double-click is not just one solution. Double-click is a full, broad sense of solutions, and then escalating is a process, a whole process. It is a cultural process, first of all, in our organizations, agencies, etc. And then it's a technical process that demands for us to be very clear on what we would like to obtain. It's not just credit and then run the campaign and that's it, but we really want to make sure we are prepared for change. Just to say in a nutshell, today, with the digital market channels, we have Toyota, new, brand new, efficient, but double-click will be our Ferrari. And it's here to stay, of course. It has not been easy in general in the market. Not because the clients do not know about it, but because there is a vision from media, where we really want to have our advertising fields. So the first thing that we have to do, and that's exactly where I want to go to Medua and Scott, Danielle, and maybe what we are going to keep on talking during the rest of the morning or the day, which is audiences. Audiences is the capability of having this tool into segmentation of the information that we have based on the behavior, based on the budgets, lifetime value, as we will have this later on with Analytics 360. So the first experience that double-click is requiring from us is audiences. So why at the very beginning? That's the question, of course. Because the idea is to try to have an impact in a relevant manner through what we have as core of advertising. It could be a campaign manager, search manager, and bid manager. Double-click for search. So double-click is not only a programmatic search, of course, which would be the quest for searching it, but also the ability of having something that is quite complex and that will definitely be more personalized or customized depending on our functions. Then we have the publishers. We have already mentioned that. They have all the tools that would be good for advertising. But we, at the same time, will like to work on the tools that today will enable us to generate certain relevant advertising for our users, to make it more efficient, processes, of course, and other things, and at the same time to bring along our business objectives. And finally, here in the measurement, we have the odometry that changes names for Analytics 360. And of course, double-click is the tool that has been thought for large marketers. Why? Because it's very complex, because the integration is also complex in terms of complexity for everything that can be offered. So when we talk about double-click, we will talk about a set of tools. And when we talk about programming, we will be talking about Big Manager. It's very important at a conceptual basis because it helps us to understand what's the scenario, the next step. So double-click is unified, one single process for all our digital branding. All our digital branding, you might say, if I have a purchase order to the media in order to have sponsors, that hasn't changed, right? Yes, it has. It has changed. I mean, can I buy Facebook? Yes, I can buy Facebook. Nevertheless, and here we start with all the industries, the difficulties in the industry that Facebook has finished a couple of months ago, but this will continue going, and we will be able to buy Facebook in a couple of months, excuse me. Can I manage all my advertising channels through double-click? Yes, I can do so, but beyond that point, why do I want to have everything in just one single point? Well, basically because I want to measure the attendance, but not in the click, in a click, only in the click, but also in the impression that this person might have had. I remember one of our clients, in fact, he's here with us today, called me a Sunday and he said, Pablo, tell me how you did this. I looked in Facebook, excuse me, I looked in search and then it came out in Facebook. How do you do that? Well, basically, those are advertising campaigns that, of course, are integrating the attribution of the impression. It could be search, it could be search book, or it could be display. Not only the click, which is what we are used to, and double click is that one single point of access that will help us have the whole island of information, the whole cluster of islands, because today we only have one island of information. That's analytics, but it will help us see that as the generations of those different areas that is leading us towards this final convention as archipelago. So it would be just an invitation to leave the last click conversion behind, because this last click conversion, of course, is relevant. Of course, it tells us a lot about our user. Nevertheless, we are the users. And the users were kind of weird in the internet, right? Many times we look for the same thing, the same announcement, for example. I don't know why, but we wait 48 hours to convert. For some reason, why are you waiting for 48 hours and not in the first session? Could someone explain that to me? We're doing some research, right? We do not want to make a decision right there when the advertising could lead us to our shopping cart, and I added a lot of products. And when I was going to pay, then I regretted it. And I said, okay, and then how would that be in my competitor? Then I went back to look for the same page and the same announcement, the same ad. So we are weird. And among those interactions or actions and things we have for digital property, and that's exactly what we want to tackle on. That's what Daniel was mentioning on generating experience. Of course, this is relevant for the process. This is an invitation then to just leave the last click of conversion and try to see the whole process. Like in a football match, everyone is important to win the match.
So we could have this view of multi-channel funnels that in the first stage, when we make this to be known and we cooperate in the consolidation and consideration and then intent and the decision, in the last decade of the purchase of media, in fact, this started back in the 90s, then it went through the reservation buying. And I'd say that the agencies, the 80% continue doing this. You call an executive, then you ask which is the best media plan for the customer with tactics. You give back a plan, then comments, then the media, and then 60 something interactions in order to buy one banner, lots of interactions. DoubleClick is promising now how to change that flow so we're able to buy the media communication we want to buy, but in relevant impressions. When we get 1 month is the impression in imprint in one page. If it doesn't matter if it is an 18-year-old interaction or 60-year-old interaction, we might go for women 25 to 35. So 80% of our inventory will be trash. DoubleClick is allowing you to buy the inventory by using relevantly with your audience. That comes to understand the unifying of this. Just to give it a bit of context so you get to understand where we are. In the United States, 30% of advertising purchase and display is programmatic. In Mexico, it is between 5 and 10, and in Chile, between 0 and 5. Be honest, maybe close to 0, then 5, right? So we have lots of roads to walk. We are in a critical moment of technology, and if we're able to get on board this train that is kind of a slow riding, We will be able to win the disruptive race that Daniel mentioned and be able to deliver a good experience to the users. The other concept behind DoubleClick is relevancy or relevance. Why? Because we avoided the banner of 300 to 50 or kilos, now HTML5, not Flash, and we started to deploy to the user our public, our audience, relevant pieces to generate engagement and experience and impacting the user not just in the getting to know, but in the consideration and generating positive experience. When we are able with advertising to give positive experiences, we grow in our markets. Some core concepts. First, to understand, double click is still cryptic and it's hard to explain. If it was a complicated explanation, just interrupt and tell me and ask me to explain it again. Eventually, the media is the advertising inventory, and they will do it with the agencies, with the partners, and they sell their advertising to networks. They buy it, this inventory, so they could resell it through AdWords or DoubleClick, and then they meet Google Display Network, which will buy inventory to the media, remnant inventory that it was not sold, to make some advertising appearing in some media according to the segmentation used. However, 5 years ago, Ad Exchange was born and they buy the advertising inventory to ad networks to enable this buying as too many ad networks appear. So Ad Exchange is the motor able to generate different buying at different moments. So this gets complicated again, and we start to the DSPs that are tools like uh, buying at exchange. So the scope is close to 100%. Before, with the customers who said, let's buy MSN, Yahoo, XPN, whatever, and said, this is lots of management to be done, lots of. Even if you don't think to ask for a quote, then proposition, then to see it, it's lots of interactions. DoubleClick now is making this process easy. It's not just an advertising tool, but a way that is different to see how you buy media. Another concept that is fundamental that you will see a lot. When you see DoubleClick, already Maru and Scott mentioned, which is the audiences, then the first party data, which is first party data is your information. That is, you could be all the users that were in such content or adding the shopping cart or they abandoned the shopping cart. These are audiences that you characterize in order to arrive to them with a relevant message. We are just setting them so far. Then we have second party data, which is the same information but shared through holdings of companies. Of course, there's a line of ethics that is fine. Google will tell us how to interact and how this tool will allow you to exchange or share, let's say, within the holding, a group of companies, not externally. However, we could do it. So it's good to know that we have the possibility. The one thing we need to know is to put the standard for the culture that we use to work with data. Somebody asked about confidentiality of information. I think this is part of the most controversial side that these tools are offering. And third party data, which let's say that you're a means of communication or digital platform and you have your clusterized audience and you want to sell this. Women between 35, 25, they love sports and they love healthy life. Then you add them in anonymous cookies package, and these cookies are sold through a DSP, like DoubleClick. So the media or the platform is not just selling impression, but relevant ones according to the characterization. DoubleClick will add an additional fee and is part of the commercial conversation with clients, but you have to know that you could do it and is current now and valid, and many companies are sharing their third-party cookies with platforms like DSP. Another core concept, which is the working models through which Google says these are the best practices. The first best practice is advertising transparency. Part of Digital Intelligence Association is to share the same DNA of advertising information and expenses. So to grow, it is important to have transparency, no, not just as a commercial model, but as to make efficient what we do. And building audiences in the second place. If we don't have building of audiences, then we're not on a programmatic buying. This is so important because of the expansion of digital programming. What we experience is so many external agencies from different countries going from China to the United States. They want access to the platform because they want to run programmatics. But come on, if you don't build your audience, what programmatics are doing, you're doing open auction. So give me 10 million. I don't care who opens that. So eventually, as a concept, it's very important that to have programmatic buying, we need to build audiences. We could get new audiences, and of course, the integration of information, the context offered by Google Analytics to do integration and analyzing, and with the reports that Madhu had shown coming from audience, if I'm able to see that information from my audience and the behavior of my audience, not just segmentation through demographics or region, but these audience already segmented and the behavior of it, to me that is fascinating. I hope you launch it soon. Multi-platform then? Multi-platform, basically because we are in a multi-platform world now, and the user is not just one user, it's several users at the same time. They are on their smartphones, they are in the browser. Some will have Kindle, tablets, and many other devices to get something. If technology makes more progress, we will have more devices connected, and of course, multi-platform will make us arrive to the user at the right time with the right message, and eventually, private marketplace. This is an ability to buy media, traditional media, but now in a segmented way through the platform. Consequently, I avoid or save sorts of steps of management that are still necessary as we're still changing the culture in the way we bought it. Finally, through all these segmentation layers, customization, and discovering which is the stage of the process in which the users are, then you got creativity. If we're going to make these offers, sorry for being rude, I'm going to become as negative as Daniel, but if you want to see the ugly part, come on, don't do it. If it is to build a user experience and surprise them so we're able to get commercial objectives to advertising, that's the right path. Let's do it. I mention that because in the need or the desire of raising campaigns with programmatics, they say do this and they say, oh, this is ugly. Am I going to do this? All this effort of marking, segmenting, customizing, uploading, and some other things with Google, that is a process that is still in the development. So you have problems now and things happen. If you're only going to show something that is showing your name as an institution, we continue to be big. There's no commercial behind to a customized message. That is a promise. If you don't translate that promise into an objective that is commercial, then you will continue to do the traditional buying. which is by the banner, by the billboard in the street where we will have our name, and that's enough. As I said, creative subjects is the critical thing. All these segmentation and the stage is to show the user a relevant piece which is able to change with climate, a piece that could change with the behavior of the user, a self-building piece that is able to do remarketing dynamically according to what they have viewed, visited, and attempted to buy. Just to show you some examples, I'm coming out of this subject matter, but there are limits that are totally different from what you know in GDN. GDN says 150 kilo, no more than 30 seconds. At 30 seconds, this needs to stop. It used to be a failure rate of 24, click text, and series of standards that are blocking you, right? Because to adapt creativity to this part, which is so uh, limit, limiting, there are the technical limits, but we could overpass above 500 mega pieces. A couple of examples. Murphy says this does not work, but we could take the risk. Browser. There you go. Murphy's Law.
Voy a tener que entrar directo a la galería de DoubleClick. Si lo escribo mal no me importa porque Google me lo corrige.
You know that if I make a mistake typing, Google will correct it. Let's see if we could get some good pieces to surprise you. Okay, Murphy's Law. I knew I didn't have to do it. Okay, we'll skip that. Just a second try. You can tell jokes, questions, stories, so we make it fun. It's not easy to do it on this screen on your back. Okay, no internet, so let's skip this part. Then the bandwidth is exhausting with you the videos you're watching. But then I could attach some examples so you could check it. But the piece you see is expandable. Just to show you some of the details so you could identify the abilities. Details like this user is in Rome during the day with a sunny weather. This same piece has different definitions from different places or cities with different weather. So these will be used and formed according to the user and the weather in that day. So you have a time, you have the weather, the sun, the temperature, the moisture level, and humidity, and it's self-building. Other pieces will generate interaction to bring videos, stories, galleries. So it is thought of graphics where you could generate a positive experience with the users, not just branding by saying, hey, I'm here. But now you say, hey, I'm here, come here, let's play with this car. You could change the color, and the piece is self-built. We have multiple possibilities in order to be and have some impact in our user in a relevant manner. How can we scale up in programmatic? Some important definitions are. Sorry about that question. We can get it. We can't get it without the mic. it's hard to have the screen on the back. Thank you. Loading. That is a piece of advertising very well known from Revlon, where we'll see some of the formats of these galleries. So you see what we could find, which is similar. This is the one I mentioned. Let's bring some others so we could see what we find. We could open more. There are some traditional formats, lots of cars. I selected them so I could show you. This is a very good one, and there was one that was awesome. Let's start by this one. These changes in depending on where you are and the weather. So you see it now is with our time. Another one. This is a video with interaction, but it's not that nice. Expendable. If I'm not wrong. What about this one? This is interesting for the possibilities you have. Think about 300 to 50 banner, 30 seconds static, no interaction, nothing. And then this. You'll see all the possibilities you have. If you want, you can change the color so you give the user experience a possibility to see which are the available colors. At the same time, I could offer new information details. See that? I have some extra, so I have an interaction which is turning back to interaction creation, an interaction where you could deliver that control to the user. Advertising is not in general giving the control to the user. You just see it and the control index is 0. Double click is giving you back the control to the user. So you could generate experience, marking in a positive way, and eventually convince them.
Y a ver si sale algo más. A ver este Samsung Galaxy.
Let's see what we have at Samsung Galaxy, hopefully not Samsung 7. That is expandable with video. What else? Maybe remarketing. In cars, you have lots of development, but I don't want to take longer. So we could continue with our schedule. But we have totally different possibilities compared to what is offered by the regular advertising. How can we identify if what I'm doing is real-time bidding? We need to compare. This is technology, rationalizing, working flow. Is that integrated with media to compare with the media on reserve, impressions, and segmentations of audiences? Are we able to give discrete impressions by numbers? When we talk about the user lists, we could create lists of 3 users, and these 3 users, in the next second they enter the list, we impact them.
And the real-time bidding can offer this to 3 different users, while other technologies is making us or obliging us to have a minimum of 1,000 or even more. Okay, this is finally towards demographic-specific behavioral groups, regardless means where the user is, of course. It could be bought at real time, of course, a couple of minutes after. And finally, it's the only point where we have the offer and demand of different suppliers. That is why when we talk about real-time bidding, we are not talking about another marketing way of doing things, but it's a change in the paradigm and a different way of buying and using advertising, okay? And at the same time, and from the bidding point of view, we are just leaving aside this even type of bidding when, according to my business objectives, we set up all the tools to say, okay, maximum I need to pay this CPA, and also based on the cookie, we'll be able to also bid as long as it keeps the same areas I'm asking for. Now, of course, the other ones are just even. 200, and that's it, 200. Okay? So we have a tool that is going to help us do different kinds of tools from the open option, very well known on the way we work on GDN, as the programming type of file with all the programs that we have, CPA, CPC, ROI, as well, CDM, for example, with all the different frequencies that this means or entails, of course, with the possibilities of segmentation, sharing, and acquiring those types of segmentation, and also remarketing through the ad exchange. They are rushing me, so I'm going to skip a couple of things in order to get to something that is key to me, which is the roles. In order to have this new world, to be able to grow there and not get in the midst of not doing anything with the strategic or tactical aspects, it's very important for us to have the roles. And when we have someone aware there are 4 different roles in any digital campaign, we get towards that in another way of doing things, because the client is going to be the plan manager, always. He's going to tell us what we can do and what we can't do. Then the media that runs through the whole platforms. Then we have productive, which is the one that develops the bandwidth for those platforms. And between these 2 different agencies, we have miles of differences, because sometimes it might be a very good agency proposing copies, images, integration of text, etc. Nevertheless, when we have to bring this down to earth, meaning to digital, creative people might not be that good when we have to take these digital things. So in our case, we ask people to be the productive agency and also the media agency. So we have these 4 roles that are clearly identified. We can certainly move forward because there's a lot we have to do. So it's also working on the digital data. That's the first thing. Then to have a digital brief and aligning those types of work. Third, to go to design and creative development, test, QA test, and launching. And finally, optimization. In other words, insight and optimization. Getting the insights is a priority for all of us because, fortunately, digital marketing is always changing, meaning that the marketing plans evolve. Sometimes we start with a marketing plan and we finish with something that is a little bit different to what we have proposed to the client, because when we see the behavior of users, we start making certain decisions that enable us to improve conversion or the client investment in general. So this is a summary that is helping you, is going to help you to do some planning. This is what we're using with our clients to have very clear in our minds what we need. And it also helps the client to have all the answers to common questions, the questions that maybe their headships are going to ask for. We usually know that there are certain things that are just understood just because, and when we leave them explicitly, it's much better. And the bonus track, please don't rush me anymore. Open bids, that's the open option that we are usually work on, GDN to direct offer when we send a pitches order. Google has identified that to do so, it's more than 32 steps. So it's many steps, management, emails, well, other things. So this is a world where we have been in the last 5 or 6 years, in other words. And the next step is the programmatic direct. 3 different models that will help us to buy impressions in the media, but that are relevant to my audience. It's not the millions of impressions that the media would like to sell to us. And then, of course, this is playing against the media as well, because agencies such as ours will choose or pick the ones that perform better. So we'll have to go back to look at the media with the tactic objective that is very specific, and it's going also to help us to outperform the ones that are doing our advertising. So this is just a couple of images from the media that we can buy today in Chile through Programmatic, sending the requests for inventory through this tool. And of course, this will help us in offering information that will enable us to give to our clients a better level of detail of the audience that we are having an impact to, and also the pieces that we are running. And finally, the last bonus track. This is really the end of my speech. Since last year, in England specifically, we have been able to buy billboards through DoubleClick. So I would say that DoubleClick will leave the digital part aside. So we do not really know, but it's bringing us to more relevant through the flying areas. That is the presentation of DoubleClick. I hope I've been clear enough. It's a complex world. I'll try to make it easier. Thank you.
Antes, dudas, preguntas, consultas antes.
Questions before lunch? I'm Mauricio Tegui, Pablo from Cooperativa.cl. I think you're quite enthusiastic about programmatic, right? But I have a doubt in my mind. In the States, more than a decade, I think it's been that they have been trying to work on it. And you showed a slide. Well, as a matter of fact, 30% is just on programmatic purchase. Why? Why 70% is still being bought through with that 62 steps, I think, that Fully Click says we have? Once again, cultural aspects. Once again, we also would like to mention that we are anchored to an old type of way of doing things. We're just trying to sell advertising. And not many are concerned about the relevance, but just working it out, executing the payment, in other words. It doesn't really matter how. I have the 20 million I need. So I think that all of that has mingled into the cultural change that we all need so that media could benefit and also agencies could benefit for a better service. Most of the things that GDM does is through programmatic. In fact, they do it in a programmatically way, sort of say. So if we just take it to programmatic, we just need long-term vision. I think that's what we need. In the States, it's been for a long time, as you have said, DoubleClick is not something new. But the idea is that we have a new boost since last year, especially from the European legislation that will help us a better scenario on the privacy of information, and also on the way the media has understood that this was not the business, it's not what we wanted to do, but they wanted to collaborate when they wanted to know that they could have more clients, and the media has also understood so. And on the other hand, agencies such as ours, we have learned and we have moved forward to give better recommendations to our clients. Of course, at the very beginning, we had everything like not very shiny, but cloudy, in other words. But we have been able to understand things in context, very close to our Google Analytics people, so as to know what's happening on the other side of the moon. And I would say it's a process. Maybe the credit card. In the 90s, remember? No one wanted a credit card. 2000, everyone had it. Why? Technology was there for 10 years? I don't know. And there are some other examples as well. iPhone. For many people, iPhone was the first one that launched the touch screen. Everyone forgot that Palm's OS had that already. The only difference was instead of your finger, it was a small pencil. Well, not 10 years before. The culture was not ready. So I would say that we are also going through things that go through cultural change. We need that cultural change. We need to make ourselves understood also so that we are all benefited, and that has also generated this positive impact. This looked very negative at the very beginning, and maybe they wanted to know that everything was going to be acquired or merged, or if one was going to be taken over from the other one. Any other questions? I work in hotels. My name is Suzanne, and I'm in charge of digital strategy. What is the improvement in conversion? If we wanted to have a test between A/B double click like the ones you showed, or the traditional display. Okay, a couple of things about conversion. Conversion is not that just the user looked at things and just clicked on it and he landed in a perfect website and he was completely blown out in his mind, and a conversion beautiful type of process. That's not it. It's generating experience, it's going step by step. It's not only buying or getting, but the behavior within the website. Okay? So I could not go through a percentage, but because what we have learned is that conversion is completely different from client to client, service to service, industry to industry. So we really depend on the strategic moments or what you would like to promote. If you say tomorrow, okay, 5-star hotel, 10,000 pesos for one night, the conversion rate is, of course, 90% because the commercial offer is going to be, a strike, right? But now if you say 5-star hotel without breakfast, people will say, what do you mean, 5-star hotel without breakfast? Maybe the conversion rate is going to be low. It's the same scenario, the same website, the same form, the same booking. But the conversion then will not really depend on the automatic banner that was there, displayed there, but the strategy and rates could change really strategically. What I could say is that there are savings behind that because the highest impact is in the integrating capacity of a flow or a technology that would help us to measure many more things. But it's hard for us to just work on a percentage of improvement just because. I am going to meet on Monday with Aton Hotel's manager, and I'm going to talk about this new functionality we have, because of course everyone is talking about it. And he's going to ask, I'm sure, what is the argument behind this, so that he will change from Google Display, which is what we are used to have, to programmatic experiences. Well, generating experiences to programmatic purchase. Okay, then the next question. The next question is, okay, help me to sell more. If you were me, what would you ask? What would you say? Madhu showed us a graph, a funnel graph, on how we could have a positive impact in the acquisition of new clients if it's closer to the funnel. So I think that what you could offer to the commercial manager of Aton, that will of course want to sell because everyone wants to sell, that's including me, is a commercial improvement. I don't want to mention percentages, should I? But according to what we showed earlier this morning, in the conversion, these are users that would have left. So this will definitely help you to achieve what you need. But it's very, very hard to do so without knowing the market, the website, which is key, and the best marketing campaign. We could have the most powerful, segmented, etc. But if the website has certain issues, the users will not convert. I know it's hard. That's why I'm asking. So thank you very much anyways.